Welcome to Cosmic Comics, Games and Collectibles, your zen of geekism. We carry comics old and new, magazines, toys, games like Pokemon, Magic, D&D. Want Godzilla, Ultraman, Star Trek, Ninja Turtles, Funko Pops? You'll find it all here. Shop our Cosmic Sound Room and pick up a record or two. Enjoy our Comic Coffee Lounge with a cup of Sasquatch coffee while geeking out over a super cool movie on our big screen. Cosmic Comic, Games and Collectibles. Superman loves us, and so will you.
Hi everyone, Jason Hunt here, inviting you to join us every Saturday morning for news, the week's headlines in science fiction, fantasy, horror, comic books, video games, plus Comic-Con updates and the weather, and the occasional interview along the way. We call it Good Morning Multiverse. We hope you join us every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 Central, right here on Sci-Fi for Me TV.
America's southern border has become a war zone. Human traffickers, drug smugglers, and terrorists flow across the Rio Grande with impunity, secure in the knowledge that no one will stop them. A distant federal government lectures Americans on their privilege while punishing overworked Border Patrol agents who were helpless to stem the tidal wave of invaders and determined migrants. Second-generation Cuban-American Marcos Zamora is a military vet, more patriotic than most Americans. No longer able to ignore the chaos at his doorstep, he acts. Joined by his best friend Gus, they hit the border every night, saving lives while stopping violent drug cartels and other opportunists. The government reacts with fury at Marcos' attempts to preserve American sovereignty, deploying the full might of their enforcement agencies. But Marcos understands that the only thing the rich and powerful fear is bad publicity, and he records every encounter. Whoever he is, this private American must be stopped. Illustrated by Richard Bonk and written by Eisner winner Mike Barron, Private American is his version of Captain America, and maybe a little Punisher, taking part in this ongoing, violent, and very real battle of good versus evil in the war for American sovereignty. Grab your copy at theprivateamerican.com.
We have a secure border, and that is a priority for our administration.
Ladies and gentlemen, Red 22 Studios in the house.
What's up, everybody?
I've got a great studio audience. They're very, very complimentary to our guests. Robert, only name I know you by, because I looked all over. I'm like, Red Studios. Who's Red Studio? Who's Red 22 Studios? So please introduce yourself to our audience so that we can start looking for your comics.
Yeah, so my name is Robert Smothers, and I am the creator of the comic book called Broken Planet, which you can read on Global Comics. You can buy from Indie Planet under the label of Red 22 Studios, which is just me. I get to do the art, the writing, the scripting, all the good things.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
One-man band here.
One-man band. I get to play the trombone, the drums, the sousaphone, baritone, everything at the same time, like a Dr. Seuss book.
That's a lot of pressure. That's a stressful thing to, I mean, on the one hand, you can't get mad at anybody.
Right. I can look in the mirror like, man, why did you do that? Just look in the mirror, just arguing with myself all day.
Yeah. You don't have to get into an argument with the artist about, no, I really meant for you to do it this way.
Yeah.
You're behind it.
It's me.
So what got you into comics? How long have you been a fan before you became somebody doing it? I couldn't think of the right word there.
So I remember I was probably about 8 or 9, and the apartment we were staying in when I was a kid, I went upstairs and I was looking for something. I just happened to find, like, my dad had like 4 or 5 comic books. He had the first appearance of like Herbie, Fantastic Four, and like a couple Superman books. And I was like, wait, he reads comic books too. Because like I was, at that time I was watching the cartoons and all that kind of stuff, and that kind of got me into it. And I remember the very first comic book that I'd ever gotten was X-Men Volume 2, number 13. It was a little bit before Executioner Song had started.
Yeah.
And it was October, I think, 1992, I think, when the issue came out. That was my very first comic book, and of course, I was hooked. And then now I'm drawing characters. I'm writing my own stories. I'm watching Batman, the animated series. I'm watching X-Men. Eventually, I started watching Dragon Ball Z, Sailor Moon, and Ronin Warriors, all this kind of stuff. And it just sprung up from there.
Yeah, there are certain of us that, that first exposure, it just grabs you and doesn't let you go. I didn't draw comics. I knew better for some reason. I was into the writing end of things, but my love affair with comic books was that I saw not the writing or the drawing of it as a viable career opportunity, but the wearing of the cape and the mask. I thought, yeah, that's what I'm going to do when I grow up.
I think we've all done that. I remember wearing, like, you just either grab a towel or like a bed sheet and a safety pin, and like you just have at it. You're like flying all over the house.
Yeah, absolutely. I would like I said I didn't draw, but I would like draw pictures of portraits, and me and my little brother, we had bunk beds, and I had to talk because I was the oldest. So I drew this picture that was supposed to be George Washington in a frame and everything, but I hung it up there with like a string, and then when I wanted to, I would turn that picture around, and there was like a sign with an arrow said "to the Bat Cave," and I would jump on the pole and I would slide down the end of that bunk bed. I was off around the house again. Yes, it was time to right wrongs. Mike Walters in the chat says, "Yeah, it does sound like Robert is the jack of all trades. Man, doing the whole thing behind his comic." Pops Van Zant, good to see you out there, my friend. We are simulcasting on the Madness Comics Network tonight, so we're trying to get the exposure to Robert's work out there more. At what point did you decide, what, let's enough drawing pictures, let's try to make this a profitable thing, and we're actually going to print something?
So it was probably, it's 2022, so I'll say about 7 or 8 years ago. I was at work, and I ended up meeting a guy who also makes comic books, and I was like, you know what? I think I can do this. Like, I can make my own comic books and finally get these stories like in comic book form. Because I remember when I was younger, I was drawing characters, but I was really writing stories like in a book as opposed to a comic book. And I decided, well, I like reading comic books, even though at that time I hadn't really been reading them like that. But I decided to go ahead and like make my own. You know, it just happened. I was like, I think I can do this because I see someone else doing it. Like I'm like, oh yeah, it's definitely doable.
Yeah, everybody's doing it now, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
especially with crowdfunding being a thing and print on demand. You don't have to get hired by any of the bigger publishers; just publish it yourself.
It's nice to be able to not have to worry about, well, I have to go through Marvel. I have to like work for them first and then do this, or I have to work for DC, or I got to work for Image or like Boom or whatever. No, like you can go the independent route and like make it happen.
Absolutely. So where did the story for Broken Planet come from here?
So the story it's kind of been something that I've been doing like off and on, because a lot of the characters that are in the book are characters I've been drawing since high school. They've had different names at certain points. Some of them. One of them has literally the same name and it's the same character from when I was, we'll say 16, 17, 18. I'm not going to tell you all who that character is yet, or at some point you will find out who that character is. But like most of the main characters have been in some way, shape, or form something I've written decades ago, because I'm 42 now, so this was like a while back.
I hear you. So you're pulling back those old. I've done that. I've had, oh gosh, first two novels that I had published were both stories that I'd had sitting around for 10 to 15 years, all researched and ready to go and looking for a home. And I just reformulated them to the opportunities that came up when they did. So yeah, I can totally relate to that. So eventually we have Red 22 Studios becomes a thing. Anything behind the name of the company there?
So the story for why it's Red 22 Studios is interesting, because I originally had it names. I had two other names, and every time I had a name, I'm like, dang it, someone already has that. So I can't really use that. I had to come up with something else. So I had a friend of mine who he passed away probably 5-6 years ago, maybe 7 years ago, and he called me Red 22 for silly. I forget the reason, but he called me Red 22, and I was like, you know what, that sounds good enough, because the second name that I have for the company I really love, because I have children and I kind of wanted to like incorporate them into the name, but I really couldn't, because MoMA is already a thing. The museum is called MoMA.
Yeah.
I call it MoMA. They would be like, oh man, you can't sell comic books under that name. So that's how we get Red 22 Studios.
And then you got to lock it down quickly, because if you wait a week, somebody will have Red 22.
Right. And I'm like, now I got to call it Blue 43 or something. Who knows?
So this guy here, he is your main character. This is Jason.
Yes.
And I'm just going to take the obvious here. It looks like you're using some sort of a computer-aided tool to do this with, rather than the hand-drawn. You're using digital?
Yeah, so I'm using this program called Dan Studio to make all of my images. So it's all 3D rendered and whatnot. And I do a little bit of kit bashing, because I've done about this much Blender. So I'm not as good at sculpting as I would like to be. But once I get there, I won't even need that, because then I'll just have all my figures and set pieces and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean that's I mean DAZ Studios, I think they give you your basic human figures, and then you can like shrink them, grow them, fatten them, skinny them up, give them boobs, all that kind of stuff. But you're right. Once you have the character skinned and fully realized, you just kind of set them over here and like, okay, now I want you sitting in that chair. Okay, now I want you jumping off that building. And it's the same object. You just move it and pose it, and there you go. I have a friend who does a lot of 3D comic book artwork, and it's amazing the stuff that he just gets to reuse these elements. And you wouldn't think they were reused. They don't look like they're cut and paste, because they're totally different expressions and everything.
Mm-hmm. That's
they don't even really look 3D.
Right, and see, that's what I like about doing 3D, because when I see stuff like Dragon Ball Fighter Z, or like Guilty Gear, like all that's 3D, but
Yeah.
it's still cell shaded, and it almost looks like hand drawn anime. And I'm like, I can do that. I'm not there yet, and that's something I'm working on, trying to get it to where I can still use DAS, but get some kind of semblance of line art. Because I still like to draw. I'm still an artist at the end of the day. I like to get some pen and paper, and drawing in real life versus digitally, it literally just feels different.
Yeah, I can
Like
imagine.
we have the pencil on the paper or the ink on the paper versus like ink on an iPad or something.
Yeah, I'm the same way with reading. You know, I have to have something physical in my hands to read it. I can't read on a screen. I can read on a screen. I don't
Yeah.
like to read on a screen. I can't keep my attention on it that long, because I'll click on something and then I'm somewhere else.
Yep, it's easier to get distracted reading on a screen versus a book, because you just have that book in front of you.
Yeah,
And it's like,
yeah,
you have to turn the pages. It's a whole different experience turning the page and like what's on this next page, or like going to the other page, or like, let me look at this a little bit longer. Like,
yeah. How much further do I got in this chapter? Okay, well, I'll stick with this a little while. That kind of thing. Scrolling is not intuitive for reading, and for enjoyment at least. I mean, you've got to read some stuff. Web pages, obviously, tweets. We're scrolling up and down all day.
And I found that out pretty easily. I started reading Fantastic Four: Heroes Reborn on Hoopla, and I was like, I was reading it, but I wasn't really like. I was really just looking at the pictures and stuff, as opposed to like reading the words, like trying to figure out what the story is. Versus like if I had the book, like I'm deep in that joint.
Yeah, you and the book are one. So Jason is he lives in the far future here.
Yes.
Because, I love this kind of stuff here, where it's almost like Legion of Superhero stuff. It's the Combined Science Federation of Mega City 1. Now, Mega City I've heard of. Mega City's Judge Dredd call out.
low key.
Yeah, okay. Well, shh.
And so the reason I call it Mega City, because I was trying to figure out a way, like in this future, instead of smaller countries, they're just like huge plots of land that are just like literal mega cities.
Yeah.
And there's several of them on this planet. Whereas, instead of having like the United States and Canada, there's just like big old land masses full of like people doing all kind of crazy stuff in it.
It's where we're going. It'll all be one huge megalopolis. But he's had the traditional superhero accident. Can you tell us? First of all, he's still Jason. Does he have a code name? What are his powers? How did he get them? Who is this hero?
So Jason's code name is the Star Guardian.
I like it.
Yeah. And you probably know, like, creating a superhero name is one of those where it's like, it's an experience creating a superhero name, because you want it to be unique, and you want it to sound nice and powerful. Like the Star Guardian just sounds like this dude, he's got some respect on his name. Like, he's got a responsibility.
Yeah.
So he's the Star Guardian, and he gets his power trying to find the Shabaka Stone. So they're looking for the Shabaka Stone. The accident happens, and this accident unlocks his power to control gravity.
Okay. So now we've got so kind of like Starman, I think, the Starboy from Legion of Superheroes.
Mm-hmm.
Controls gravity.
I want to say Gravitron, who ended up being he was like a super villain, but he can control that gravity too, which is funny, because I've always, when I started researching like superpowers and like all that kind of stuff, to me, telekinesis and controlling gravity are almost the same. Because if you're just lifting objects, you're effectively like mentally almost like changing the gravity of that object.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Anyway.
Yeah, because it's not like you're flexing and saying, it's not like psychokinesis or telekinesis cares if the item weighs a pound or 50 pounds. Because that would rely on, your arm muscles and your back strength. This is just your mind. So you're negating the gravity. Yeah. You said the Shabaka stone, and all I could hear was the Chewbacca stone. Like, wait, what? so this was what he was sent out after, and this is how he had his accident?
Yeah, so the Combined Science Foundation, they're a group of explorers. They just try to find artifacts and all that good stuff. And they do a bunch of other things as well. But they were searching for the Shabaka stone. They ended up finding it, but they also ended up unearthing another thing that was asleep for a very long time, and now it's awake and hungry.
Oh, great. So the superhero is invented just in time for the supervillain to arise.
He's like, he's wiping his eyes. So, oh, people are here. I've been asleep for a very long time. I'm really hungry.
Let's kill him.
Yes. It's the reason I did it because I wanted a way to introduce at least one villain. Of course, there's more, but this particular villain is super important because he's one of the villains I created when I was a kid, and he's very pivotal to the story and giving Jason more motivation to do the right thing and just try to do the right thing and try to protect the people that he loves.
Yeah. Well, heroes are always defined by their villains. Batman is who he is, less because his parents were shot and more because Gotham City's full of crazy people. Right.
Crazy people that have gone through trauma just like he did, but they responded in a totally different way.
Yeah.
They didn't, Poison Ivy didn't decide I'm going to become the symbol of plants and fight villains. I'm just going to try to kill everybody with roses.
Exactly. Yeah. None of them ever got their powers and said, I can use this for good. Which would be a really cool Elseworld story if all the Gotham villains were actually heroes and Batman was the villain that they were all hunting and he was still Batman, which meant that he could get away from all of them and outsmart them all.
That would be dope. That would be dope.
Get on that, DC.
Listen, don't ask them to get on nothing because they'll probably mess it up.
Oh, they'll screw it up. Yes, of course. So I'm going to switch tabs here because you have the book Broken Planet, which this would link to it. If you went down here, it would tell you how to find the book. But we're going to save you the time. The link to this is below the video, by the way. And this is over on Global Comics. So this is where people can now can they read it or order it? Is it a digital or is it a physical?
So Global Comics is where you can read it digitally. If you want to purchase it and have it physically, you have to order from Indie Planet.
Okay. So Indie Planet, you can get a physical copy, read it here on digital. So I'll find an Indie Planet link. If you'll just drop that to me sometime tonight, I'll put it at the description of the video because I know a lot of people here, a lot of people have to have digital, but most of the people want to hold it in their hands, like boobs. They're fun to look at on the screen, but
Yes, you have to. Yes, those are the ones you have to hold in your hands. You can't hold those digitally.
No, you can't.
They always work best like in real life.
Exactly. We don't, and you know what? I don't care if they're fake or real. If the comic book is fake or real, I'm reading it. It doesn't matter. How big is this book now? Is it graphic novel size, or are we still in the land of floppies?
It's a little bit in between because it's about 50. I want to say about 53 pages.
Okay, that's hefty.
Yeah, it's pretty hefty. And I just on the next go round, I'm gonna go a little bit smaller so it doesn't take me as long because this one took me a good 5 years of me going back and forth. And when I first started using DAS, as opposed to 5 years later, I had learned so much, and I was like, well, I felt like I needed to start over so I could, take the skills I've learned and apply them.
Sure.
But
nothing wrong with that.
To me, that was a hard decision to make. Like, do I just finish what I have and present it, or do I start over? and just redo everything, but make it look better and try to be more appealing to customers.
Always make it look the best you can. If you've gained a new skill and you have to redo everything, then you redo everything. Because otherwise, if you're like, from issue 2 forward, I'm going to do it this really cool way. Doesn't matter. Everybody's already saw issue 1. That's what they think it's going to be now. So when did this release then?
I released this in 2020.
So this has been out for 2 years now. You should just now about re-releasing book 2, right?
Book two is on the way.
Okay.
So like my wife will always comment how I did finish book 2, but I was not happy with it. So I decided to redo book 2. So that's what I'm in the middle of doing now.
Okay. Are you just gonna do it and then put it up here, or why are you not on a crowdfunding platform advertising this to everybody?
Because I'm thinking that I want to have the book finished and then go on to crowdfunding, as opposed to trying to do that and finish the book.
Okay.
I want to have the second book finished and ready to print, and then I can start thinking about other like extras and maybe a variant cover, because I'm not a big fan of variants. Like, they're okay, but
yeah,
I get
okay
trauma.
If there's a few of them, and they're okay if you don't have to buy 50 of the one to get the other one, like the way Marvel sticks it to the retailers.
Yeah, every time I think about variants, I think it might be either Darkness #1 or like Witchblade #1. There's like 10 or 12 variants.
Yeah,
I'm like, it does something to me.
There was several years back now, but when DC Comics released Justice League of America, and this was when they were still doing Justice League, and then they wanted to do like Justice League of America separate, the Suicide Squad version, basically. They had 52 covers, and it was the same cover all the time. It was them planning that flag, and all they did was change the flag to the 50 states.
Oh, yeah, that's whack. That's so whack. Just they could have just like come out with one with like the regular flag, and that would have been enough. You don't need.
They had 50. That one too. That's why they had 52 of them. They had like the American flag, and then they had one for every state, and I think they had Puerto Rico.
Oh my god!
It was
AKA Dead Company, as some would say.
Now, I know a comic retailer who he doesn't have a brick and mortar anymore. He went fully mail order, but he got tired of the publishers telling him, hey, here's your 1 in 150 cover, and then a customer would say, that's the one I want. Order me that one right there. And he got to the point where he said, okay, but you have to order 150 of the regular cover, because he wasn't going to get stuck with the ones that wouldn't sell. And he had a guy do that. It was for like the Batman 10-cent adventure, the last 10-cent book that came out. The guy bought however many books it took to get that one cover.
Wow.
That's the only time anybody ever took him up on it. And he bought them, and the guy paid for them. So
that's wild. Yo.
So did you crowdfund the first issue of Broken Planet and I just missed it? Or
all self-funded? Like all yeah.
Are you planning on crowdfunding? I mean, I feel like I'm trying to push you into crowdfunding. You don't want to do it, that's fine.
So I've been thinking about doing a crowdfund for the second book, because I want to try to get build my audience and whatnot, and trying to learn how that works. And I'm really also trying to decide what kind of incentives do I want to provide, and trying to figure out how much that's going to cost.
Yeah,
and things like that. Because I want to do a lot of different stuff. Like, I want to do figures and calendars and all that kind of cool stuff.
That's the dream, right? You want to see your character on everything. My advice would be to focus on the book, put the book out there, and then let the extras be dictated by what your readers say. Hey, are we ever going to have a this or a that? And start with those first. And then, you can kind of, bait the waters a little bit. Say, hey, what if I were able to get an action figure of Jason? Oh yeah, do that. You'll know what the fans want and what they're willing to pay for. So when do you think we'll see issue 2? I mean, you're redoing it now.
I'm redoing it now. I think with the panels I have, I think I'm close to being halfway done. I think I can have it done by, this is December. I think I can have it done hopefully by this time next year.
I hope so. Yeah, that's a long time.
I work and everything, so like I don't get a lot of time just kind of like go ham. You know, some days where like I'll take a break or two, play some Cyberpunk. Hopefully, it doesn't crash.
Yeah. The day job. You come home and there's a chore list that was she spent all day making you the list so you'd know what to do.
Yeah.
And then the kids, they want to see daddy. Yeah, I get it. It's hard to carve out that time for creating the thing that you want to create when you've got to live. You've got a life that demands your attention. Been there, done that. So I spent many nights up at 2:30, 3 in the morning because that's when I could write.
And see that I found myself doing that a few nights a week. It'll be like, oh man, oh wait, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. I have to be at work in like 8 hours.
Yeah,
I should probably go to sleep.
And you know what? You get past 50, and that'll kill you. Like I find I actually like to sleep now. I think that's death getting me ready for its final approach. It's like, yeah, kind of like that, don't you? You want to do that all the time? We're coming.
Right. Like just wait a little bit longer. You can sleep forever.
Yeah. You never have to get up again.
But nah, man, like time is probably my biggest hurdle of just like honing in and just like going ham. Yeah.
So do you think that you'll ever get to a point where to get faster production, you'll like start farming things out and saying, okay, I need somebody to draw these pictures who draws all day long?
Yeah, so I want to get to the point where I can have a team of people, maybe like a penciler and an inker, a colorist, maybe a letterer and like an editor.
Now I don't know how it works, but with DAZ Studios, can you export those objects and give them to another DAZ developer?
Yeah, so I can export them as like a OBJ and whatnot. I could probably export entire scenes, and then they would have all of the scenes they made. And I don't know if they would have all the materials for the scene. That's something I haven't tried, but they at least have like the figures.
Yeah, but they could develop the materials if that's their full-time job. They can start developing backgrounds and based on your script, and then putting your objects in it, and then you can say, hey, no, it doesn't look quite right. And then all they got to do is just tweak the objects. They don't have to redraw anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's something that would be interesting to me to be able to do.
Yeah, because, if you, with an object, it's like, I work IT. I've been in IT for 35 years. That's my day job. But, you could send it out to a team of people. You send it out to 12 people. You got 12 issues done in a month. You're set for the year. This guy did this one because they're developers. They're not. I almost said they're not artists. That would get me slapped. They're all artists. But they're all DAZ artists. But your style would be consistent. So you'd have 12 different people working with the same looking objects all the time that you developed. They would be posing them, and you'd have 12 different people to pay. So find a good rate. But your development time would just increase exponentially. You have stuff in the can ready to go, and you don't even have to launch it yet.
See, that's why you make the big bucks.
Oh no. People don't like my takes on technology lately this week. I've been trying to explain how technology and art work, and I'm about to get set on fire by some people because AI became a thing.
Oh man.
and I kind of understand it.
So I, on one hand, I guess I get people's kind of like, oh, don't steal my stuff and make the robots do the things or whatever.
Oh well, yeah,
like,
yeah.
It's still a robot, and it doesn't have that I feel it sounds corny. It doesn't have the humanity that like if someone drew it,
Yeah, it
versus
does that,
like
but
a computer drew it.
It's not musing and sitting here thinking, I feel creative today to do this. A human being sits down and says, you give me an image of this. The human is still the creative process. The AI is just the new tool that renders it. Because the human will say, don't like that one, don't like that one, kind of like this one, make it a little bit more this, make it a little bit more that. Now raise this. You're an art director. And the AI is just a machine. But it's put the fear of God into people. They're scared.
Well, here's the thing: like, even to tell the AI to do a certain thing, you still have to have an imagination.
Exactly.
Because you can't just tell it, "Give me a picture of Superman," because it might turn to look like a big old red box with a yellow S on it or something. I think for writers, it could be huge because being able to express those words and to be able to tell it to do certain things, I would think would be huge. Because some writers are more descriptive than others, and being able to be that descriptive means you might get that picture of Superman, or you might get a picture of Superman that was drawn by like a 2-year-old. I don't know.
Exactly. This one is one I did generate on an AI platform, so it's capable. But yeah, you're right. You have to tell it a lot of stuff. I wasn't aware when I first started developing how many things you could tell the AI. I'm like, well, just give it a couple parameters. I don't want to confuse it because I've worked with systems before where it's like, be concise. Your Google search terms, get them down to just what you're really looking for. With AI, the more the better. So
see,
pump a book into it.
And it's almost like when you're talking, if you were talking to an artist and you wanted a certain thing to be drawn, you would want to, if someone wanted me to draw something, I would want as much information as possible so I could give them as close to what their vision is, because I'm not them, so I can't see their vision.
Yeah,
I need
them
to be able
those
to
1,000 words to get that picture that's worth it. And in the end, this is going to be another tool because there are people who can use this adequately, and there are people who can't. No matter how they try. It's like photography. The camera came along. Oh, well, we don't need you to draw a picture of the Grand Canyon anymore. We're just going to send somebody over there to take a photograph of it. And we'll run that in the magazine article. Well, guess what? That works great. But there were people who were better at using the machine than others. And suddenly photography became an art. and you have photography art books that are out there that are beautiful. And you can't just say, it's just an eagle sitting there, or it's just a snake on a rock. You had people who waited. They got the right lighting. They waited for the pose. They sat there for hours, and then it's like, there's the shot, snap, and done. A lot of work. It wasn't just press a button. So same with AI. There's going to be people who work for a couple of days on a single image in AI to get it done. It's not going to be give me a picture of this and there we are. But that's neither here nor there. That's a side discussion. I'm sorry I dragged you into that, man. But it's been on the front of my mind all day.
I've been like, when I go on ArtStation, all I see is like no AI generated images, and it's really annoying because I just want to see people's art. Like, I want to see what is out there that will inspire me. And okay, I get it. You don't want AI art, but goodness gracious, the whole website's just like no AI art, and it's really annoying, to be honest.
That does get. And I wouldn't want somebody representing AI art as my artwork. When you do something in Daz, well, first of all, everyone can tell you did it in Daz because it's got that Daz look to it. But you say built this in Daz. If you're going to put up an AI thing, built this with Midjourney. Nothing really wrong with it in that instance. Trying to pass it off as your own is no more ethical than trying to, find some lost Jack Kirby pages and saying, I drew this.
Right.
And your work is your work.
Telling people that you did it in AI is no different than if someone took a picture with a Canon Mark whatever with a Leica lens with the telephoto with this f-stop and da 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 da. Like this, to me, that would be the same thing. And people do that because, oh man, you did that with that camera. Da 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 da. I can try to do that too. Or how did you do that with that camera? Because when I did it, I couldn't get this kind of light. I couldn't get this. Like, what settings did you have this on? What's your aperture? F-stop. Blah, blah, blah. Like,
yeah. And people think they can reproduce the AI just by saying, what were your prompts? You know?
Yeah. Like, nah, that ain't how it works.
No. Oh, but it's going to be a bold new future. And, you know, I know people who are using it for backgrounds. And I'll bet you that by issue 3, you'll probably be going into an AI prompt and saying, you know, I need this. I need a spaceship background with a computer showing things. And then you'll drop your dad's characters onto that scene, and it'll be a marriage made in heaven.
I can see that happening because rendering times.
I already see it happening.
Rendering times would be cut like in like 75%. Like I get so much work done just being able to have a background already preset, and I'm just worried about the characters in the foreground and things like that.
Exactly. That's that we're acting like this is a brand new thing. They did this in the 1940s with animation. They would paint the background. Disney would paint the background, and then they would draw the characters on cells on top of it. So it's nothing new there, folks. It's just being done a different way.
That's it.
All right, Robert. Thank you so much, man, for bringing Broken Planet here. I want to see you again when issue number 2 is being close to complete, so we can, get some word out ahead of time. Have people look for it. If you're going to crowdfund it, then we'll definitely make sure that people see the campaign. That way you'll be able to show us some of that art, some of that dad's art, and we can get into the story a little bit deeper about where Jason, the Star Guardian, is going to go for the next several issues.
Definitely will. And you can follow me on all the little social medias and all that kind of stuff. And everything's all the same on Twitter and Facebook. You can follow me on all the socials at Ray22 Studios, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, ArtStation, TV and Art. That's all I have. I don't have a TikTok. I don't do all that.
I'm going to throw it all out there in the chat. I've got your Indie Planet link here from the private chat. I'm going to go into the YouTube video immediately after this and put it right below there, folks, so that you can go to Indie Planet and get your physical copy of Broken Planet. It's kind of weird. It's on Indie Planet and it's broken. Okay, well, you'll find it. You'll figure it out. At any rate, Robert, thank you again for coming on. Folks in the chat, thank you for being here. We don't have a show without you. We're just a podcast falling in the woods otherwise. And while you were here, as always, we just hope you had a blast. Good night, everybody.
Thank you. Good night.